fair warning to all the purists out there. Uh, Cherry Jones says dosia, and it made me crazy because it's dosha. And she also says lazy, lousy Lizzie Jane. And I was like, no, it's Lizzie Jane. How can you not know? It just seemed like it was like a foundational thing that I just couldn't believe anyone, and you know what? I dealt with it and I moved on.
Welcome to Land of Laura, the irreverent yet scholarly podcast about all things Laura Ingalls Wilder. Here's part 2 of my interview with journalist, author, and historian Erin Blakemore. If you missed part 1, you might want to listen to that first. We ended the last episode with Erin sharing that a friend of hers had just read the Little House books for the first time as an adult and was decidedly not a fan. Do you think that it's possible that had you read the books the way your friend did, had you not read them as a child, that you might see them the same way that she did?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're very different people, so I don't think we would have received them the same emotionally anyway. But I do think that a lot of what I encounter in these books is pretty antithetical to the ways that I, as a modern person, think I should conduct my life, think I should think about various issues such as race, such as settlement and colonization, those like key issues of the book. I absolutely continue to question those as a person who loves the books. And so I think if I didn't like them as much as I do, I probably wouldn't be engaged, like tussling with these much bigger topics in the same way. I don't know. I've seen the fan community and the academic side of, the Wilder folks. I've observed everyone interacting and doing what they do for quite a while. And for me, the complexity is something that draws me in. It's not something that drives me away. I will say one place, though, that I have actually come down that I think me and my friend both agree on is I do not know that these are books that can be, for me, ethically presented to young children without significant contextualization. I would argue that the amount of contextualization that I have even needed, like as a mother encountering these texts with my child, which is something that I did early on when my kid came to me, I do feel that so much contextualization to me is necessary to really kind of counteract the possible, not harm, but, just those thorny questions, those issues. I think that they really do ask us as adult modern readers to consider and behave responsibly with them. And I think that if I had encountered these books more recently and I didn't have the personal connection, I might not have been willing to stay around long enough to find, a lot of the things that I love most about these books. This is an interesting day and age to be a reader and acolyte of Laura Ingalls Wilder.
So you think the Little House books could benefit from some kind of companion contextualization text to go alongside them?
Yes, and I've been thinking more and more about this as I encounter the books because I'm also a fan of a variety of different amazing authors who have more longstanding and robust academic traditions associated with them. And for authors like Charlotte Bronte, there are books like this, which is the Oxford Companion to the Brontes. It's kind of like a multifaceted encyclopedia of all the things you would ever want to ask yourself or know while you were reading a Bronte text. And boy, have I wanted that as I've undergone this process. And so I've been thinking more and more about ways that we might achieve that kind of as a community. And that is something I'm definitely spending some time chewing on as my own career morphs and changes. Something very important about Laura Ingalls Wilder is that I really think that she taught me what cultural history was long before I had any vocabulary for what that even could be. And I actually am now a historian, and I am starting my most formal training of all. I am entering a PhD program this year to study American history. And I mean, there's no way I would have ever been interested in any of this if it wasn't for those minute details that made me feel like I could access the past.
That is fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm almost giddy. It's kind of embarrassing, but that's okay.
So were there any moments in your listening where you actually had to pause and go back?
Yes. I had completely forgotten about multiple parts of these books. I think we all have that, right? It's like, for example, I forgot about the fact that the Plum Creek book isn't just the dugout, right? It's also the amazing house and the, miraculous stove and this house built on hope and kind of nothing else.
Yeah.
As it turns out, I had totally forgotten about that. I had obviously forgotten about Farmer Boy. I had in no way realized how having Farmer Boy be where it is in the series and having that book exist really makes a huge difference to the second half of the series as a reader, because once you meet Almanzo, you already know who he is. You already know kind of the basic stuff you need to know to be someone who can grow to love Almanzo. And I really appreciated I would say, like, extremely deft work that Laura does in establishing that so that she can, with a ton of discretion and very hands off, like, it's not heavy handed at all in the later books. All she has to do is give us little glimpses of Almanzo, and we recognize something in him that we've already lived through in Farmer Boy. I appreciated that so much this time around. I'm trying to think what the scenes that really kind of stuck out to me this time. Paw encountering the wolves he won't shoot, or is it the deer or the wolves in Big Woods?
This is the second time this has come up in the podcast. I believe it's the deer.
Yeah, it's right near the end,
and
when Pa's talking about his nighttime encounter with a doe and her baby
in Little House in the Big Woods.
Yeah, that he decides not to kill. I had totally forgotten about that. And I was in a bed, so I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I sat up and re-listened to it because it was so immersive. It was so visual for me. I could really imagine all of it. And I felt like I was there. I felt like I was there with Pa, and that the entire book is almost like the coda to that one scene, that up close and personal interaction between a human and their natural world on the precipice of everything changing. And that really stuck with me as I read the books. I will say, Mary, I noticed a lot more on this read, which I think is just because I'm older and, have worked out more of my family issues and am more mature. I can be, I can kind of make my peace with a Mary who, has beautiful blonde curls and is very good all the time, in a way that I think adult Laura obviously had too. I really just cherished that relationship between Mary and Laura. Oh, I have to say, fair warning to all the purists out there. Cherry Jones says dosia, and it made me crazy because it's dosha and it's just dosha. She also says lazy, lousy Lizzie Jane. And I was like, no, it's Lizzie Jane. How can you not know? It just seemed like it was like a foundational thing that I just couldn't believe anyone, and you know what? I dealt with it and I moved on. But
she got everything else perfect, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like, if that's the main thing I'm upset about, I think that's a pretty successful 8-book audiobook series. Yeah, Lizzie Jane, that kind of made me crazy. The Happy Golden Years song, I had never heard. The Endless Starlight song, I had never heard. And I could really, I don't know, it was, again, that wormhole feeling. And I've never fallen in love with a horsey older man who is going to take me on very long drives to get frozen grapes and have
frosted grapes, not frozen.
Yes, frosted, frozen, Sexy grapes. These
Sexy
books have
grapes.
sexy grapes in them. Also, oh my God, the horses. I am a city girl. Grew up in San Diego. There were no horses in my life. My child has done a lot of riding and a lot of barn chores and very much engages with horses. So I know a lot more about them now, feel more comfortable around them as an adult. And oh, wow. I mean, this woman, she probably would have died rather than reveal any intimate information about her partnership with Almanzo, her love affair with him, the first days of their courtship, any of that. But this woman can use horses to say every single thing that needs to be said. The descriptions of horses in the second half of the Little House series are almost like sexual. That's what it comes down to. And I mean, how fantastic, right? That a woman who didn't have language for any of that, who couldn't express any of those things, could nonetheless tell us everything we need to know about a teenage Laura getting more in touch with herself as a woman through these very physical, very vibrant, moving animals that were part of her life. And I think about this because I'm also rereading Prairie Fires, and something that Caroline Fraser talks about is how a teenaged Rose felt as if her parents were always kind of in a dreamy world of their own that she didn't have access to. And wow, after reading those last several books, I know exactly why they had that world, because that was the relationship they forged on those long rides, behind those horses, in those wide open spaces together as a couple. And I just really appreciated that so much this time around.
I personally, I have to admit this, not gonna lie, have not listened to the audiobooks.
I can see why you haven't gotten around to it. I think it's there's kind of a fear that like it this is what I have whenever I encounter an audiobook of a book I really care about. I'm afraid that I'm going to hear something that I kind of can't unhear, or catch a vibe or like a sense that maybe didn't come from me but came from the narrator, and it feels like a very intimate trip to take with someone you've never met.
Were you worried about this happening to you as you started
Yes.
the audiobooks?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to go. I'm just going to do Big Woods because I know at least I can get my, like dance at grandma's details, which is the most comforting thing on earth, right?
Right.
I just want to see Dosha and,
Dosha.
Dosha. I want to see Dosha and the sisters getting ready for the dance. And I want to feel like I'm sitting on a bed watching them get ready. And I knew I wanted that because I was, downtrodden and hurting and in an unfamiliar setting and just really needed something familiar. And I'm just so glad that I stuck with it.
I am definitely going to have to listen to them. I don't know. I'm not a huge audiobook person. Unfortunately, my mind wanders even in books I'm really interested in.
I think part of it is figuring out kind of like what your threshold is, like what's like the ideal amount of time you can
Yeah.
spend with it, and then just kind of accepting that as like your reading cadence for the audiobook.
I do better with nonfiction, but I don't think I've ever tried to listen to fiction that I am already very familiar with.
It's
So
bizarre. I
it will
will
be an
say
experiment.
the best audiobook aside from this series, the best experience I have had thus far is listening to Tandui Newton reading Jane Eyre, which is a book I can probably recite large chunks of and am more familiar with than any other text on earth. And I still heard new things and I still felt new things. And
That's really a testament
what a gift.
to the narrator.
Yeah. It's an interpretive feat, I would say, even just have the bravery to voice these incredibly well-known, well-loved characters. I mean, Pa Ingalls is like, he's Pa Ingalls. He's a absolutely critical figure in the history of kidlit, much less of Western colonization and settlement. So to hear someone speak as Pa, I don't know, it's kind of like an emotional risk you're taking almost. Because what if they say Dosia? And you think
Or
it's
Lizzie.
Dosha. Lizzie Jane, no, I refuse. It's Lizzie Jane. I think we all can recognize this. Sorry, Cherry Jones.
I have thought about trying to get her on the podcast. I don't have any connection. If anybody does, let me know.
I would actually be really interested to hear her perspective. I imagine there's a lot of choices you have to make too, just on a narrative level.
No doubt.
Some audiobook narrators, do like really voicey voices where like every character sounds their certain way. It's less of that kind of performance. It's definitely like a read through, but she gives emotional valence to those moments. And, there's a couple moments in the books where Ma says no. And oh my God, I felt it in my stomach when Ma said something other than, just quiet, supportive Ma stuff. I mean, it was like, oh, Caroline just said no. And that's something I've heard it in my mind a million times, but to hear it in someone else's voice was pretty instructive.
Way to go, Cherry Jones.
Hey, I mean, she's a force, and how wonderful that she, was able to do that in her prime. I think they're very well performed. And I don't remember who does the fiddle, but the music is fantastic too. And Cherry Jones sings all the songs. She doesn't just say the lyrics, she sings all the songs.
Okay, I think you've
what a
convinced
gift.
me. I admit I didn't know about the songs. I did not know about the songs until now. So
Yeah.
that will be my next big project, I think.
Well, give yourself a lot of, emotional hangover time, because there might be some stuff that jumps out at you in a new, different way. Something that I've had a lot of conversations with KJ about is the question of, did the fictional Laura know that she was falling in love with Almanzo? It's really interesting to think about. That had just never come up because I hadn't had this conversation. Like at the beginning, when he picks her up, when they're going from the revival meeting and he escorts her home, and she thinks, well, I guess Pa's okay with it, so okay. And then, he's coming to pick her up. I mean, this is being written by Laura Wilder, the wife who has been married to this man for decades. She's going to end up a Wilder, and we know that she's going to get there. But seeing kind of her development and her slow dawning of, oh, I really don't like it when Nellie Olson is spending a lot of time with Almanzo. I'm not a big fan. That just watching it kind of dawn on her that
Yeah, such a
she
difference
loves.
between that scene and I'm not going to go with you anymore, and I'm only going with you because I miss my friends and I'm
How
lonely.
teenage is that? How 15-year-old coded is that? I mean, I feel like she wants to be upfront with him. She has no intentions. She just is going back and forth like, thank you for driving me to and from the Brewsters. And because we already know who El Manzo is, because of all that groundwork laying that Laura did in Farmer Boy and throughout, the town being built, etc., we know that he is worthy of her affection, and we know that he's going to be a good steward of her care, because that's also that shift, right? She's shifting now from walking home with Pa and Ma to walking home with another male escort, and the kind of handoff they make, I just had never really thought about it before. But now that I'm older and I can see all that, I will say this is something that rereading gave me too. The scene where Pa is standing at the door and he's looking out and she sees his shoulders shaking.
On the banks of Plum Creek.
Yes.
That's the straw stack.
It's a straw stack. Right. Pa got up quickly and went to the door and stood looking out. His back quivered. Laura and Mary did not know what to think. When Pa turned around, his face was stern, but his eyes were twinkling. All right, Laura, he said, but now I want you girls to stay away from that straw stack. If that straw's to be fit to feed them, it must stay stacked. Do you understand? Yes, Pa, said Laura and Mary. That was the end of their playing on the straw stack. I did not grow up in a happy home. I did not grow up around emotionally regulated adults. And when I was a child and read that scene, I thought that Pa's shoulders were shaking because he was so angry he was trying not to beat her.
Oh my God.
And as an adult, I now understand that he's laughing because his kids are doing something ridiculous and have found this crazy explanation for it that somehow works with their sense of morality.
Mhm.
And he's, trying to just get control of himself so he can continue to be the enforcer who's saying, you need to not destroy our straw stack.
So let me ask, when did you realize this? It wasn't just now, was it? Because
It
sometimes
was,
when we learn
it
stuff
was,
when we're kids, we hold on to that, right? Even when we know, when we're old enough to know better, we hold on to what
it
we
was in my
decided.
30s, I think,
Oh
that I
my,
realized that. I
oh
don't
my
think I had
goodness.
really, it was like I'd experienced it the one way. And so that was the way it
Sure.
was. And so now every time that I re encounter that, I think about those parenting moments in the book. For the most part, well, for their time, certainly, they come off as very permissive, gentle parents, not too far away from what a lot of us would aspire to with our kids, where you are authoritative but not authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came to the part with Ma snapping at Laura to draw the broom and not flip it, it's like my heart sank because I remembered making my parents so mad and being scared of what was going to happen. And it was interesting that that still is in there a little. But I also see those parents. I mean, these were loving parents. And knowing what I know about Laura, knowing what I know about her incredibly tortured relationship with being a parent herself, and her contentious at minimum relationship with her own daughter, much less her exile from, her parents and the Dakotas for much of her adult life. I really felt that grief and that love kind of just extending back across the decades and seeing all the ways her parents were trying and all the ways that they gave her what they could with what they had. And I think, I mean, that's adult perspective right there that is really baked into these books in such a beautiful and really poignant way. I did shed a tear this time too. I don't think I've ever cried while reading these books. I did cry at the last fiddle night where she has Pop play all the old songs.
Right before she's getting
Um,
married.
yeah. And I saw it from their perspective this time. I also then saw the oh crap, you know, our one able-bodied teenage daughter is about to not be part of our family and we kind of need everyone's help. So there was that as well. So my friend KJ, I've been rereading these books with, she is a brilliant teacher and educator. And one of her big objections to these books is the depictions of teaching and education and the essential lack of, modern pedagogy, which is, Clarence and whoever didn't learn the lesson, so they had to be punished. That very punitive recitation and memorization driven form of education. And that was interesting to think about this time. I mean, it's like, better, you do better, right? Hopefully we've moved past that as a society, but it's also really amazing to think that people like Laura Ingalls, who fought so hard for their educations, that's what her education consisted of. It was the opportunity to sit in a room and memorize things. I just find that so fascinating, especially as someone who's like uh, so privileged and I am able to interact and talk to, scholars and teachers and educators and historians all day long, which I feel so lucky to be able to do. Knowing that Laura took that little smidgen of extra that she was able to get and really turn that into not just, a series of books, but an incredibly amazing career, as an adult writer. And that's something I love about your work. And I love about Ingalls and Wilder scholarship is that we are learning and appreciating more and more about the ongoing career and work of Laura, the writer. There's so many Wilder myths. And I think Laura, as like the untutored, book writing, kidlit transforming phenom, is kind of part of the mythology. But there's a reason Rose Wilder Lane became an incredibly famous author and writer. she lived in a family that cared about words and about reading and about education. And, I mean, Laura was an equal talent, if not possibly even a greater talent, I would say, because of her ability to laugh at herself.
Thank you, Erin.
I'm so happy that you're doing this.
So let me ask, did you also include the first 4 years in your audiobook?
No, and actually, I think I'm a little afraid to hear it read to me.
It does
Just
exist,
so,
right?
yeah, it does exist. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think, well, and you know this, we were on another panel about the first 4 years with Eddie Higgins. It is an endlessly confusing book, and also tonally is extremely different from obviously the rest of the series.
Right.
I think the reason the book is so jarring emotionally is because it is an adult book about adult things that has been kind of appended to a children's book series. And so there's that tonal difference. Now that I know more about Laura, I understand the emotional reasons why it's a different book. I don't know that I would ever be able to write with any sense of fondness or even objectivity about my house burning down, my husband being permanently disabled, and my entire, life falling apart. And then also having to face down an entire future as a wife without a husband who can really help in a lot of the ways that she had imagined when they first were married.
Mm-hmm.
I understand all those emotional realities, and God, it's just a hard read. It's just a really tough read. And it's funny, at one of the Laura Paloozas, I bought a Garth Williams sketch, and it is his sketch of a potential cover for the first 4 years,
Oh,
which
wow.
he mistakenly calls the last 4 years, which I find so interesting. That's such an interesting little slip. And she does refer to last 4 years as well in the book, I think. But it's just a book that still confuses and kind of vexes me. And I'm so interested to see, like, over time, are we going to learn more or gain new perspectives into what this book is even doing in the series to begin with? I know that you and Pamela Smith Hill both think that, Rose was a huge factor here in having essentially, cannibalized her mom's life story for her adult fiction, and that Laura might have, wanted to kind of reclaim her adult story a little bit. I just still kind of think I haven't really changed my perspective that much, in that I still think that the first 4 years is the least readable of the books and leaves a very odd taste in a reader's mouth as the capstone of the series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I feel like it should be part of like the core series. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I definitely feel like it shouldn't. I think it was added on because it was convenient and a potential moneymaker for the publisher. I think Wendy McClure told us that when they came out with the paperback set in 1971, that was when the first 4 years came out.
Right. I do think the parallels between Pa and his, I mean, let's be real, record of financial ruin, and basically ranging from like fiscal looseness to straight up impropriety and even malfeasance, for her to have that in her past and then also have had the experience of her provider husband whose whole deal is showing up for her, not be able to show up for her in those real ways. I mean, I think that left scars that she never was able to really make her peace with as an adult. And so maybe that's why the book feels so gross when I read it. It just almost feels like TMI. And I'm surprised that she went there in a lot of ways.
There was also some stuff edited out. Her childbirth scene was edited out.
Yeah. And then there's also the whole Rose question, that was Rose involved in the burning of the house? Does it even matter if Rose felt like she was, and, et cetera? I do remember when I first read the book, that image of Laura falling to the ground in front of the burning house and, like, as you would do, right? I just remember I was so upset to see her that undone by something. One of the things that stuck out to me with this reread of Happy Golden Years is when she just got married and she's discovering her new amazing house with all the drawers for salt and flour, and Almanzo's loving hands have made this home for them, and her mother's tablecloth is on the table, and her, there's her food that she's so thoughtfully, packed for them is in the larder, and she's discovering this house all by herself. It's like the surveyor's house all over again. And
That's a good point.
I made this with Patty. This is my coaster that I always put my food on, is a
With
homemade
Patty
coaster
Collins.
made, which I made with Patty, who taught me how to make it. So it's Laura at the surveyor's house. And that scene where she's going through her very own house, seeing her new life, looking out across, I think they're on the tree claim, right, at that point, which I can see in my mind's eye, like, a bunch of empty space. It's so hopeful and it's so concrete. You're like, oh, this is where they're going to live. They're going to sleep in that bed. This is where their kid's going to be conceived. This is where their honeymoon's going to happen. This is where, they're going to sit out with the dog on the porch. Like, it's like their whole life is about to begin, their whole adult journey together. And so for us to return to that house and see it as a smoking ruin that an undone Laura is unraveling in front of is deeply upsetting and is very shocking almost, given how lovingly she describes that amazing house that this man made for her.
It is a really shocking juxtaposition.
Yeah. And it's just so sad. And as our wonderful scholars, Bill Anderson, Pamela Smith Hill, Caroline Fraser, Christine Woodside, John Miller, as they have shown, these were complex adults who, really struggled with not just poverty, but existential level challenges. They also participated in probably one of the great scams of American history, the Homestead Act, the thought that white settlers could take over and somehow domesticate the entirety of the Great Plains, despite the absolute unavailability of water and arable land. They, in a lot of ways, were kind of victims of this huge grift that played out in their lives in really personal, concrete ways. I mean, from having to abandon a house, they had multiple houses they had built from the ground up, from fire, from plague, all those things. And I'm just so glad for that scholarship we have that helps us see it within that context and helps us think of Laura not as a victim necessarily, but as a participant in this incredibly tortured and probably crazy proposition, the settlement of the West. I think that there's a tendency, especially among fans who, they have those happy childhood memories, they have those good associations of the feel good parts of the book or the show, they have the things they love about Laura and her life story. And a lot of people can get pretty prickly and almost like personally offended when you delve into those less savory, much more visceral, real, and consequential parts of their lives. And it's something I really want for myself as I continue to engage in Wilder studies and thoughts and scholarship, is I just really want to be a voice for it's okay for it to be this complicated. It doesn't diminish it at all. In fact, it increases its validity and its importance as a potential avenue for asking those questions and exploring those pretty shameful moments in our history. And I really contest the idea that questioning the actions of the real life Ingalls and Wilders in any way minimizes their accomplishment or their spot, as the titans of American literature and of part of like the great story and myth making of the West. I think that if anything, there are more reasons to continue engaging with this content in our increasingly complex and varied perspectives. And I just hope that we're able to, as a community, continue to really welcome those conversations and debates, because they don't diminish Laura at all. If anything, I think it really makes it even more clear that she is an exception, that she is a figure who probably has even been underestimated in the myth making, in the world of children's literature, in the world of, her role in westward expansion. And I just hope that we're able to really sit with that and accept it, because a complicated Laura Ingalls Wilder is so much richer and more interesting than a one-faceted little girl in a covered wagon.
Thanks for listening to part 2 of our talk with Erin Blakemore. I love conversations that introduce different ideas. After all, there are so many ways of seeing things and so many ways of saying them. If you're not watching this on YouTube or another video platform, check out Land of Laura on Instagram or Facebook for images of Erin's Garth Williams illustration of the First 4 Years cover, where it's called The Last 4 Years, as well as the coaster that she made with Kansas youth librarian Patty Collins at a conference for the Kansas Library Association. Land of Laura is created and executive produced by me, Sandra Hume. Special thanks to Canadian folk punk band The Dreadnoughts for our theme music, and extra special thanks to all the guests, like Erin, who give so generously of their time and knowledge. I hope to see you next time. Make sure you subscribe to Land of Laura on your favorite podcast channel or on YouTube so you can hear about episodes as soon as they drop. As Pa says, there's plenty more down cellar in a teacup. And as Ma might have said, it takes all kinds of people to make a Little House world.